Hey guys, what's up? It's Rap again. In today's video, my rich entitled neighbor tries to steal my farmland to build a hotel on it. He tries to convince me at gunpoint to give him my property and wants to sue me, however, a farmer never backs down. Here is what happened. And the title story starts like this. It took me a while to grow into my roots, but now I can proudly say I am a farmer. I come from a family of farmers and I live on the land that my ancestors worked on for generations before me. When I was younger, I did not understand why my father didn't even want to try changing his occupation. But once I inherited the property after he passed away, I understood exactly why. It's a simple life, but it's a good one. I wake up early every morning to tend to my crops and animals, and I go to bed exhausted but satisfied with a hard day's work. I never had to think much about the outside world. The area I lived in is dominated by farming lands and our property was the oldest and easily the biggest. This meant more farm animals as well, and I grew a deep bond with each of them. I had about 20 sheep and I knew each of their preferences. It gave me a sense of comfort that my daily routine started with tending to the cows every single day. However, I'm most attached to Cook, my sheepdog. He is extremely smart, even according to sheepdog standards. Taking him on a walk is the highlight of my day. I could not possibly imagine losing him. Another great thing about living in a farming area is the community. Even though many of them had stopped farming as the times changed, they were all still supportive. The neighbors around us were friendly and helpful, always lending a hand when needed. We shared tips on farming and even held a yearly fair where we displayed our best produce and animals. It was a wonderful time for everyone to come together and celebrate the hard work we put into our livelihoods. But that all changed when a new resident moved in next door. The house beside mine had been empty for the past 3 years. We had heard that the daughter of the previous resident had inherited the property after her father passed away, but we had not seen her at all, not even at the funeral. It was only natural that we were all surprised when a huge truck with boxes and furniture showed up unannounced. The new owner arrived shortly afterwards, and within 2 days she had finished moving in. The house still required some renovation as the structure was falling apart and the front yard was now filled with weeds, but she didn't seem to have any plans of fixing it. A part of me missed the way her parents used to take care of the garden and how each flower bed was impeccably well maintained. But it was someone else's house now, so I let it be. It wasn't like she didn't have the money to fix the house. In fact, it was the opposite. She had 2 cars parked in her driveway even though she lived alone, and all her furniture looked expensive as well. She made sure everyone she spoke to knew that she owned a chain of hotels. Her entire personality reeked of entitlement. At first, we were excited to have a new neighbor and welcomed her warmly. But it didn't take long for us to realize that she was vastly different from anything we had encountered before. She was what most people would call a Karen. She was rude, abrasive, and downright mean. Her personal philosophy seemed to be along the lines of anything and anyone can be bought. She complained about the smell of the manure and demanded that we got rid of our animals. She even went as far as to register a police complaint against me, claiming that my farm was a public nuisance. Naturally, they ignored the complaint considering the farm has been around for a very long time. The community was shocked by her behavior, but we tried to ignore her and continue with our work. However, things only got worse as Karen began to harass other neighbors as well. Her attempts at getting my farm through any means possible did not stop there though. She tried to sue me multiple times. She'd complain about the sounds from the tractor and the plowing machine. She claimed the fertilizer I used was harmful to the soil, even though I only ever used manure that was made in-house. She even tried to sue me for animal abuse. None of these accusations came through as they were all clearly false, and it frustrated her further that she was not able to extract money from me. I figured it would be best to ignore her, and at first it was easy to not pay any attention to her. I'm not the kind of person who makes small talk with strangers, and Karen seemed like the type who would want to chat about everything under the sun. But as the days went on, I started to hear things. Whispers from the other farmers, tales of Karen's deceitful ways. They said she was trying to forge documents to steal land from other people in the area. I did not pay much attention to it until I realized she had her sights set on my land. I was not sure how to handle it at first. I had heard stories of people like Karen before, but I had never encountered one myself. She came over to my farm one day, all smiles and charm, and started asking me about my land. I could tell right away that she was up to something, but I played it cool. I didn't want to make any enemies, especially not one who lived so close to me. I knew that ship had sailed when she decided to keep trying to sue me and take my land until I go bankrupt, but I had hoped that there was still a peaceful solution. However, Karen did not give up that easily. She started coming over more and more often, always with some new scheme to try and get me to sign over my land to her. I started to feel like I was under siege. I didn't know what to do. She even tried offering me a lot of money, but this property was priceless to me. I would never be able to sleep at night if I let a capitalist like Karen build a hotel on my farm. One day I was walking Cook when Karen stormed over to me, waving a piece of paper in my face. "That is a deed to your land," she said with a sneer. "I just bought it from your late father's estate. You need to leave now." I was taken aback by her sudden aggression and the fact that she was claiming ownership of my family's land. I refused to believe her and demanded to see the document. After examining it closely, I could tell that it was fake. The signatures were forged and the paper quality was different from what official documents should be. She was angry that I called it a fake, but once I gave her solid arguments as to why it was clearly a badly made fake document, she could not say anything else. Karen's reign of terror was not just limited to me. Over the next few weeks, I heard more and more stories about how she was mistreating the other people in the neighborhood. She would shout at them from across the street, accusing them of stealing things from her yard. She would vandalize their property, breaking windows and slashing tires at night. And worst of all, she would threaten them with physical violence, telling them she would hurt them if they didn't do what she wanted. Karen's behavior towards the other neighbors in the area was becoming more and more outrageous by the day. I could not believe how one person could cause so much trouble and pain to the community. Whenever she felt like she was in trouble, she would simply write a check and pretend that solved everything and excuses her behavior. One of my neighbors, an elderly woman who lived down the road, had her garden destroyed by Karen. She had spent months tending to her vegetables and Karen came in one night and pulled up every single plant, leaving nothing but dirt in its place. When the woman confronted Karen, she was met with a barrage of insults and threats. Karen told her that she should be grateful she didn't do worse and that if she didn't want to be harassed, she should just stay out of her way. Another neighbor, a young family who had just moved into the area, had their mailbox smashed by Karen when she drove into it at 2 a.m. When they asked her why she had done it, Karen became irate and started screaming at them, telling them to mind their own business and stay off her property. She claimed she hadn't done it and they had no evidence or eyewitness, but it was very obvious that it was her, as her car had a huge dent that wasn't there before. Another neighbor, a man who lived alone, had his lawn furniture stolen by Karen. He saw her walking away with it one day and confronted her, but she denied everything and threatened to sue him for defamation if he went around making accusations like these. She went on bragging about how much money she already had and therefore would have no need to steal from someone like him. Karen's behavior was getting worse by the day and it seemed like nobody could stop her. She was becoming more aggressive and more brazen in her attempts to get what she wanted, and it was not just the other neighbors she was targeting. She was still fixated on my land and she was determined to get it no matter what. One day I came home after walking Cook to find Karen on my property, digging up one of my fields with a shovel. I couldn't believe it. I approached her and asked her what she thought she was doing, and she just laughed in my face. She told me that the land was hers now and that I had better get used to it. When Cook saw her yell at me and point the shovel towards me violently, he stepped between us and growled at her. Before I could process what was happening, Karen swung the shovel straight into Cook's head. He fell to the floor in pain and my eyes blacked out in panic for a second when I saw his head bleed from the spot where he was hit. I knew I had to take action. I called the police and told them what was happening, and they promised to arrive on the scene as soon as possible. As much as I wanted to stay and make sure she got justice served to her, Cook's well-being was more important. I carried his body and rushed to my car. I didn't care anymore about the fact that I was leaving Karen unattended at my property. Getting Cook to the vet was my first priority. It seemed like a sick irony that Karen once tried to sue me for animal abuse. He had to get stitches besides his right ear, but I was beyond relieved to know that he survived the attack without any permanent damage. I could not bear to imagine my life on the farm without Cook. I've never met a dog with greater emotional intelligence. If I happened to be feeling down, he would sit by my feet and lick my knees until I felt better. I'd never be able to forgive Karen for hurting him. I headed straight to the police station from the vet with the hopes of being able to give Karen a piece of my mind, but when I got there, they informed me that no one was at the property by the time the cops had arrived, so no arrest was made. I was furious. She could not possibly get away with hurting Cook. I went over to her house and pounded at the front door, but I got no response. I could not hear anything from inside, and her car was not parked where it usually is either. The sun was setting and Karen spent a lot of time outside at night. No one knew what she did and she never told anyone, but we all knew that there was no way it was something good. When people heard about Cook, they all offered their support and we decided to find out who Karen was so we could put an end to her tyranny. One day I woke up to a loud banging at my door. I looked out the peephole only to find that Karen had shown up at my door with a pistol in her hand. She pointed it at the door and demanded that I sign over my land right then and there. I was terrified, but I did not let her know it. Instead, I went to my safe and pulled out my shotgun. When I swung open the door, I had the huge barrel of my shotgun pointed straight at her and told her to get off my property immediately. She was furious, of course. She started shouting and cursing at me, telling me that she would ruin me if I didn't give her what she wanted. But I stood my ground. I told her that I would not be bullied by her no matter what kind of threats she made. That's when she called the police. I was not worried though, I knew that I had not done anything wrong. And when the police arrived, I showed them the fraudulent documents that Karen had tried to use to con me out of my land. It did not help that she had a pistol in her hand and that her entire demeanor seemed volatile. They arrested her on the spot. She tried offering them a bribe, but it only made things worse for her. The cops were furious with her as well, not only about the fact that she tried to buy them, but also because of the way she had been treating everyone in the neighborhood. The cops in our area have known us for a very long time, and this was not the first time they had received complaints about her. Luckily, it was the first time they caught her red-handed and she now had no way to escape the situation. The following day, we found out that her hotels were facing a huge loss. She apparently had a drug problem and this made managing a business started by her late husband very hard. This was why she was trying to sue me and steal my land. It also explained why she was stealing things. Turns out she had a falling out with her parents years ago due to her addiction and her lifestyle. But since she was their only child, she ended up inheriting their property. When they searched her house, they found scores of MDMA laying around. All the trips she made at night were to deal drugs. It was very easy to find evidence for all of this, and once we did that, all the court hearings went in our favor. She was sent to jail on multiple charges, including illegal possession of firearms, criminal intimidation, drug dealing, forgery, and theft. I was still slightly angry that none of the charges were about Cook's injury, but for the most part I was glad that we wouldn't have to deal with her anymore. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I am really glad that this stupid Karen got what she deserved in the end. I hope she stays behind bars for a very long time so she cannot hurt any animals anymore. Either way, if you like the story, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and maybe even post a comment if you want to support me. Thank you so much. And the next one is titled, Am I the Jerk to My Kid? Lots and lots of ugly background here, but I'll try not to wander. My wife and I have been separated for 2 years, ink to paper on an ugly and contentious divorce in May. I got primary custody of our 2 kids, daughter 17 and son 14, and live in the home which we have owned for 20 years. On Monday, I came home to find my son and 2 of his friends up on the roof to our little sun deck. I asked him what he was doing and if he was being safe. They said they were playing army, and since I've coached the other 2 kids in mountain biking for almost 6 years now, I knew their parents would not mind either. So then I told him to put the ladder away when he was done and to keep his phone on in case I needed him to calm down. I was actually mostly perturbed because he didn't put the ladder away. So anyway, they did this every day this week until Thursday when my daughter came home from her CIT job and in her ever so sweet and acerbic tone asked me if I was really so stupid to think my son and friends were playing army, and let me know that the real reason is that our 22-year-old neighbor was in her backyard topless and Aiden had set up a perch on the sun deck to get a better view. I climbed up thinking that she was just trying to get him in trouble, but sure enough, the deck had perfect view of the chaise lounge where I assume the girl had usually sat. I told my son to knock it off and he said he would. This morning I got an angry knock on the door and it was my ex-wife and the neighbor. They've been friends for many years and apparently the neighbor called my wife sometime midweek and they had agreed they would confront me and my son Saturday morning. We sat down and it went from a calm "this is something we are concerned about" to accusations of me being an irresponsible absentee parent and my son leading an adolescent sex ring in a matter of seconds. I tried to remain calm and explain that they are just acting like 14-year-old boys and I've gotten them to stop. My wife asked if I planned on punishing him and I said that I don't feel like he did anything punishment worthy and rather this was a learning experience about respecting people's privacy. My neighbor said that if he were her son he would be in intensive psychotherapy and medicated. I told her that was really overkill and my wife told me not to talk to her friends like that and I asked them to leave before it got any more nuts. My wife has texted me that I'm being incredibly irresponsible and if I don't do something, she's going to her lawyer to revisit the custody arrangement. In all of that, she called me an a-hole several times and said it was more miserable being divorced from me than it was to be married to me. I guess that's about it, but am I the jerk for how I am handling the issue with my son? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this story in the comments. I feel like this is one of those typical boys will be boys stupid excuses from OP and I really don't like that. What the son is doing, at least in my opinion in this story, is certainly not normal and even if the stupid boys will be boys would apply here, it is still not okay. Either way, I'm very curious about your opinion. A user in the comments said, "You are the a-hole, your son is doing something inappropriate and you're just letting it slide." Comment number 2, "You are the a-hole. What has your son learned? Not to get caught." That is what he learned. He should be punished because he violated her privacy. This is not a boys will be boys situation, he should be made to admit what he did to the neighbor and apologize at a minimum. Comment number 3, "You are the a-hole. Sorry dude, but your kid is 14 and inviting his mates over to perf on your neighbor, enjoying her privacy?" Yep, you would expect teenagers to not totally get the ramifications of their actions, but it's your job as a parent to teach them the error of their ways. Letting it slip without punishment is not gonna set the message that it is unduly wrong. Don't get me wrong, your ex-wife and neighbor are going overboard with the therapy suggestions, but he really needs to face the consequences of his actions. Someone else suggested getting him to apologize, and I think this is a good idea. Get him to face the person whose privacy he invaded and admit that what he did was wrong, and to apologize should get him to see her for a person who deserves respect and not an object. Hopefully it will teach him some humility and remind him of this in the future. And the next one is titled, "Already Tired of These Neighbors." Long story short, a couple and their 4 young kids moved in next door about 3 weeks ago. Only one of the children is school-aged. Since they have moved in, it has been nothing but constant fights and contention. I constantly hear them screaming at each other and I am fed up. It lasts all hours of the night. I have 3 kids here myself, 12M, 9F and 6M, and we don't fight in front of the kids like these people do, trying not to judge here, but I am just done. The kids' bus stop is directly behind this person's house in their shared driveway. It is an apartment complex. Their door is only maybe 15 feet from the edge of the driveway. Usually their fighting is limited to nights, but today it was during the day. Full bore screaming at each other and the woman in the window, the man outside on the sidewalk. Swearing, shouting obscene and highly inappropriate stuff, etc. This lasted all day long. So I get ready to go get my kids off the bus and they are still yelling at each other, and at this point they are in the shared driveway where the kids' bus stop is versus the front of their building. I go out and at first I don't say anything, but then the conversation took an extremely inappropriate turn and I had to step in and tell them that they had better not speak like that when my kids get off the bus, or I will be the one calling the cops, screaming at each other about all kinds of inappropriate stuff like intercourse, drugs and infidelity. The other dad at the bus stop agreed and 100% had my back. Thank God. Well, these people start coming at me and I had no choice but to call the cops while the other dad got in between us. I am 5'1", a small woman. So then the cops came, the man was arrested, we share the same landlord, so the woman calls the landlord to run her mouth and the landlord calls me pissed, saying that I'm supposed to call them with complaints and now I have caused unwanted attention. And by the way, Ripe Stars, I don't really understand what the landlord means by unwanted attention unless he has some kind of illegal business going on. Anyway, a user in the comments said, "Not the a-hole, some landlords think only about money. Your safety was at risk and you did the right thing. Your personal space comes first, not to mention that you want a safe environment for your children. And also, if you called the landlord instead of the cops, what would he do? Come as fast as the police? Settle stuff so both parties are happy? These landlords would have made your life hell if you turned to your landlord and not the police. Good for you, think for you and your family's safety first and take care." And another user said, "Not the a-hole, and I agree with the other commenter that now I am wondering about your landlord. When I had an abusive aggressive neighbor recently, my landlord encouraged me to call the cops. They wanted a record of the guy's bad behavior. No landlord should be discouraging you from bringing unwanted attention unless they are doing something illegal or problematic themselves, which is not your problem. You just take care of yourself and your kids, and frankly, you're probably protecting those kids as well if this is how their parents behave." And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.